In November 2003, men's magazine Maxim published an article titled "How to Cure a Feminist," with the byline, "Turn an unshaven, militant, protesting vegan into an actual girl." And although the writing is tongue-in-cheek, I wouldn't say that it was purely satirical. Based on the cultural context, lads mags were the norm. Page 3 was all over the shop, literally. The article displays an early iteration of the bimbofication meme, where a woman transforms from a slovenly feminist, wearing ill-fitting jeans, no shoes, and showcasing her hairy pits, exclaiming, "There'd be no more wars if all people were cut off." Then she slowly transforms into a slightly more feminized woman with her pink hoodie and now wearing shoes, stating, "Maybe you're not a bum like my absentee father," to a more cutesy look with pigtails stating, "I think a man completes me," and then she reaches her final form, merely in lingerie, exclaiming, "Your Chimera makes me so hot." And voila! She is cured. And even though I'm not the target audience for this article, I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, especially the part where they recommended planting the seed of lipstick feminism. Begin by discussing lipstick feminism, which is far more moderate than the combat boot variety. Sign her up for Bust, a feminist light mag that says women can be independent, strong, and relatively hairless. The point being, how a woman ought to look to attract a man is not a new thing. That being said, nowadays in our social media landscape, it's considered a more traditional outlook, and any free-thinking, independent modern woman would scoff at the idea of being told that she should look a certain way for a man. But what about being told how to not dress for men? Dressing in order to repel men. How about that? Before I advise you on how to dress for men, how not to dress for men, let me introduce myself. My name is Tara Mooney, and this is the only channel on YouTube where all videos are written and produced by a cow. She couldn't be in the video today because she's actually depositing her coin at the bank. But if you like and subscribe, she might appear in the next one. Speaking of banks, I've been getting a lot of robocalls pretending to be my bank. And not only is it very annoying, it's also concerning. And I am not alone in this. Every year, the number of data breaches are rising worldwide. According to the 2022 Annual Data Breach Report by the Identity Theft Resource Center, the number of victims has gone up nearly 41.5% from 2021. Data brokers aggregate your personal information, including your names and aliases, social security number, login credentials, home address, location history, online activity, and much more. All of this is available to purchase by businesses and can fall into the hands of criminals. Hence, the robocalls. But do not fret, there is a solution to this pickle, and that is today's sponsor, Incogni, which reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requests your personal data removal, and deals with any objections from their side. And since many data brokers continue collecting your personal information, even after they've removed it, Incogni makes sure that your data stays off the market by conducting repeated removal requests. So, a yearly subscription is extra advantageous for this reason, as Incogni will continue protecting your data privacy for as long as you use the service. So, if you want to reclaim your personal information, use the code Mooney with the link below and get 60% off your annual plan. Incogni offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you've really got nothing to lose. Siggy approves of this message. Isn't that right, Siggy? Thank you, Incogni, for sponsoring. The year is 2024 and the girlies are on strike. Fashion strike.
Men hate my outfits. They're so mad that I'm not like hot like how I was in Uncut Gems. I hear that all the time, but I don't care because the girls love it. The girls and the gays.
This soundbite is from actress Julia Fox, known for Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems.
Right.
When she was interviewed on BBC Radio 4 Woman's Hour by Emma Barnett, proclaiming how she no longer dresses for the male gaze.
Whether I was realizing it or not, I think my appearance was very much to please the male gaze in a way. And then something happened. I don't know if it was motherhood or just being thrust into the public eye. And I was like, wait, I don't want to uphold this anymore. I want to dress for the girls.
I mean gaze, not gaze. The male gaze was coined by film theorist Laura Mulvey in 1973 as a shorthand describing gender dynamics on screen. The term is now used outside of film contexts, and well, I have some feelings about that. But anyways, back to man repelling. The term was invented by New York fashion writer Leandra Medine. Man repelling, she writes, is outfitting oneself in a sartorially offensive mode that may result in repelling members of the opposite sex. Such garments include, but are not limited to, harem pants, boyfriend jeans, overalls, shoulder pads, full-length jumpsuits, jewelry that resembles violent weaponry, and clogs. This description is from 2013. But I'd say the idea of what man-repellent garments are hasn't changed massively. The look is still largely more androgynous, even masculine, includes mishmash patterns, oversized clothing, clashing prints, and ultimately makes an I don't give a fuck statement.
So helping me get ready for the battlefield, I took these oversized army cargo pants. Don't forget your chunky heavy boots in case we need to kick anyone in the gonads. And playing on the perception that glasses make you appear smarter, a trait men really don't like. I make sure I wear these every single day.
What's the worst female fashion trend?
The fucking mom jeans that are fucking massive.
Ladies, if you're trying to go out on like a girls' night and just have fun with the girls and you want zero male attention, throw on the new baggy jean pants.
In an article from 2022, they described man-repellent clothing to be bucket hats, sportswear, prints, Ugg boots, rainbow dressing, weird denim, frilly things, ballet pumps, silky scarves, and Gorp Girl attire, whatever that is. The sentiment from 2013 still stands. Good fashion is about pleasing women, not men. So as it happens, the trends that we love, men hate. And that is fantastic. And this is good, right? It's 2024, and who cares what men think?
Me leaving the house knowing men will hate my outfit.
Women should dress for themselves rather than trying to be pretty for men.
I don't dress for men, I dress for little girls who've been told at some point in their life that this is not a fashion show, and for old women drunk on their porch.
And even though fashion seems like a woman's remit, with more than 85% of students at top fashion schools being female, but only around 14% of the top 50 fashion brands are run by women. Whether it's on a subconscious level due to beauty standards or on a literal level because of men running fashion, men still have more say on what we wear than they should, frankly. And the way to resolve it is to actively fight against it. And yes, true, I agree with that, what I just said, because I said it. However, I've got a bone to pick with the female gaze. Again, I must reiterate, female gaze, not female gaze. The male gaze is an established concept and is easy to spot. Assuming you believe in gender, sex essentialists still exist and they're as uncurious as ever. The term male gaze became popularized in relation to the depiction of female characters in films, how often they are overly sexualized, not given agency, and exist only as objects of male desire. This experience extends to how women are viewed in society, and how relentlessly we are sexualized against our will in public spaces. Margaret Atwood, in The Robber Bride, said it best: "As you are a woman with a man inside watching a woman, you are your own voyeur." The female gaze, on the other hand, is trickier to nail down. In simple terms, it portrays women with agency and substance, unlike the typical one-dimensional male gaze. Think the Bechdel test, which tests representation of women in film. So whether a piece of media has at least two female characters have a conversation about something other than a man. Much like the male gaze, which was intended for film theory, the female gaze has transcended film criticism and has become a zeitgeist term, much like queerbaiting. And once we use these terms for real people, problems occur. Queerbaiting is when a piece of entertainment uses queer imagery and teases LGBT plus representation without fulfilling its promise. So basically, it's a form of performative representation without delivering actual meaningful representation. I don't like using the term queerbaiting for real people. Not one bit. It forces people out of the closet because when they're accused of queerbaiting, when they're not, they then come out to defend themselves before they were ready to share it. And it reinforces heteronormative ideals about how people should look. Getting angry with Harry Styles for wearing a skirt but in a straight way kind of reinforces the idea that men shouldn't dress a certain way and have to be stereotypically masculine. Right? That being said, acting like he's a cultural revolutionary for wearing a skirt is equally silly. But I digress. Back to the female gaze. It is often defined by negation, i.e. what it is not. It's not about what men want. It's not dressing for men. So the fashion girlies are attempting to define it.
From what I've observed, and in my opinion, I think a man repellent outfit is something that sits outside of what the male gaze deems as sexy or attractive. It can be things that are either typically described as matronly, masculine. Think of every TikTok you've ever seen of a man saying what he doesn't like on a woman, typically being asked by another male interviewer. Those items. In these interviews, I've seen them yap about anything from maxi skirts to mom jeans to docks to Birkenstocks to hating girls that are just into that star sign stuff, bows, anything. I've seen it all. I would say that this aesthetic, if you could even call it that, comprises of a lot of those pieces because girls do enjoy wearing them and the purpose isn't necessarily to just be attractive.
And you see a range of results, but my favorite by far is dressing to intimidate men. Now that is how you repel men.
This is the ultimate male repellent formula because whenever I go out in public dressed like this, no man dares to approach me because they genuinely all think I'm a witch or something.
My critique of the female gaze is not a knee-jerk, well, you say it's not about men, but you're thinking about men in this whole thing, so ha, aren't I clever? Because that misses out important context. This is a response to aeons of beauty expectations on women.
If you're looking for outfits to repel men, you've stumbled on the right video. We're going to start off with a pair of black trousers with quite a low crotch area. This is just to let them know that we do in fact have bigger balls than they do. I hope to repel many men today.
But I do find this funny because the point that they're trying to make is that we should dress for ourselves, right? Wear what you like, wear what makes you comfortable, what makes you happy, and not think about men. Yet the focus here is on men.
And these women aren't arguing that men don't exist and aren't going to keep having opinions on what we wear. It's guidance on how to find your personal style outside of wanting to be sexually desirable, because that can be restrictive. My issue is that it can be weaponized by women against one another. Much like the term pick me, it can become a pissing contest about who's a better feminist. Male gaze equals bad. Female gaze equals good. Basic versus high fashion. Girls girl versus pick me. Take this video, where two dresses are categorized as catering to the male versus female gaze. And I see where she's getting at, because the first one is more figure hugging and, you know, more stereotypically seductive. But the dress on the right is still pretty and girly and feminine, so it all just seems a bit arbitrary. The term the female gaze is a misnomer.
Like, why is this male gaze makeup and why is this female gaze? It seems that the parameters are just basic versus edgy.
Can we please retire those male and female gaze trends? Male gaze is not when girl wears makeup and short dress, just like female gaze is not when girl has messy hair and baggy clothes. I'm so tired. Laura Mulvey is tired.
She stands in both, by the way. I personally prefer the second because it just is more interesting to me, so maybe I'm proving her point. Accusing someone of catering to the male gaze has become a sneaky sneaky way of slut-shaming while hiding behind the persona of being all woke feminist. I wouldn't apply this to the creator we just saw because she was talking about herself. She wasn't talking about any other woman's style. However, I have seen, both online and in real life, women accusing each other of looking a certain way for male validation and as an excuse to slut-shame them. Oh, you're only dressing like that to get male attention. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you could read minds.
You're just dressing that way to get attention from guys. No, because what's crazy about that statement is that if there were no men on earth, if they all disappeared tomorrow, I would be dressing so much sluttier. I've really toned it down for you people. And you're still gonna come at me with a, oh, male validation this, male gaze that. Bitch, this is art. Look at this. This is art.
To assume that a woman dresses skimpily, if that's a word, for men is an assumption. And you know what they say when you assume. But yeah, she makes a good point. In an ideal world where women are safe from harassment, who's to say that some wouldn't dress more slottily? I relate to this, you know, in my daily life I like to wear baggy, comfy things, but when I dress up and I go to an event, I want to go full out, boots the house down, or whatever they say. But I do get nervous going on public transport in a corset and a short skirt, and I wonder if I wasn't scared of the potential dangers that I would wear these things more. God.
I'm old enough, and I'm really not that old, but I'm old enough to remember the feminist era when women were screaming from the mountaintop about how they don't wear makeup and they don't do their hair and they don't wear certain clothes for men, but that is actually for themselves. So if they're going to go out and dress half naked, it's not for male attention, it's for them because it makes them feel so good about themselves.
Being a woman is great, right?
Whether they like it or not, if they go out to a bar half naked, they are wanting attention. That is just a fact.
Is that what a fact is?
On the flip side, the female gaze unintentionally plays into the notion that modesty equals safety. And it's not that any of these creators are saying, wear this and men will leave you alone. I just think that it unconsciously reinforces that idea. Women may want to dress to repel men, but nevertheless, they still might get bothered by them. And the idea that you can repel men in a culture where harassment is normalized is a false promise. Personal anecdote, this is not a fun one, so trigger warning for harassment. One day I was on the tube with Siggy and I was wearing my green boiler suit from Big Bud Press, one of my more bisexual fits, I'd say. And this group of men sat next to me and one of them started talking to me about Siggy, so I thought it was all innocent. But then he asked my number and I said no, and I couldn't move because I had all this stuff around me and Siggy was on my lap, and so it was really uncomfortable. And then he kept persisting. You know, he asked, do you have a boyfriend? And I said no. And he said, can I have your number? And I said no thank you. And then I said I like women, which is true. I did admit the fact that I also like men, but whatever. And then he said, you just haven't met the right man. And I could see that the people on the tube carriage were looking at him like, ew, but no one said anything. No one stood up. No one spoke up. And I didn't retaliate because you just don't know what could happen. I had Siggy with me. I was scared that if I piped up, then maybe she'd be in danger. But I remember talking about it with a friend after, and I was saying, like, I can't believe he'd, you know, still persist when I'm wearing, you know, baggy boiler suit where I look pretty gay and I'm not wearing any makeup and all this stuff. The fact is, no matter what you do as a woman, it is always a danger. So that's a bummer. Now, am I making a discourse mountain out of an it's not that deep molehill? Perhaps. These are cute, wholesome videos where the girlies are showing off their cute fits and rage baiting the misogynists for engagement, which, let me tell you, if you work hard at it, you can make a living out of it. I guess I just wanted to chime in because I always be yapping. But also I just wanted to remind you that there's no get out of jail free card for being perceived. Oh, how I would love to not be perceived, she says as a YouTuber. Women are told that what they wear is inappropriate because it may lure men, but they're also told that it's too frumpy and not pretty enough for men. At a certain point, we've just got to say, fuck it. They're gonna sexualize and judge us regardless. The end. But yeah, thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Check out Incogni if you're interested. Click my link in the description. Use the code Mooney for 60% off your annual subscription. Thank you to my patrons for keeping the channel alive. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.